resistant. I'm not a member of the resistance. I love Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Christmas resistance.
But I want to just soak and bask in Thanksgiving as long
I
as I
actually
can.
agree with Pete on that. I actually don't like to start the music until Advent starts, which is,
Although I will
into
admit
December.
a total hypocrisy here, not the first time. During Thanksgiving dinner, we had the TV on, we turned it off, so I turned on holiday Christmas music. So there was light Christmas music in the background of my Thanksgiving dinner.
But
which
was
is
it
really
was
not-
it like the kind where there's no words, it's just the
No,
music?
words.
No words too, okay.
I think we
not
just
a
keep
listen.
Brenda Lee on the whole show until you guys get it. The gravy's gone bad. Don't eat it. Toss the turkey out. It is time to put the tree up. Christmas is
None of it's
on
gone
us.
bad yet. Keep eating all weekend, even if you have the Christmas spirit. But we asked you, that's what matters way more than anything else. What do you do this weekend? And you've been emailing us all morning. Jolene said, we're going full Christmas in our house today.
Yes.
The longer we can celebrate the merriest season, the better. Good rationale.
It is good. All right, and so this is from Connor. He says, I believe that it's still Thanksgiving season, but then again, my wife has had our tree up for almost 2 weeks.
That's a party.
I thought it was too early. Enjoy one season at a time. I'm with you, Connor, on that one.
Yep.
And this from Chuck. It's Thanksgiving in your home until your leftovers are eaten and gone. After that, it's Merry Christmas. Issue settled. That's right, Chuck. Nicole,
Was that written
Dr.
by
Nicole
Chuck or
Sapphire
Pete?
just told us that the gravy only stays 2 days. It's over. It is time. And not only that,
Chuck's
I'll
right.
come back around Christmas time and tell you that I keep the tree up as long as I can
Really?
after Christmas. It's the best time of the year.
I do. We keep
really-
it up after Christmas, too, because we celebrate
Yeah, but
Three
there's-
Kings Day, and so that's January 6th, so we kind of do the 12 days.
You just killed my theory. That's very doctrinaire Catholic of
Yeah,
you.
it is very
which
Catholic
is
of
good,
me.
But otherwise, I'm kind of a January 1st, the tree goes down, start the new year. But I respect that.
Yeah.
But one holiday at a time, people. One
Yes.
holiday at a time.
But yet we can't avoid the news.
One
which is
caravan
certainly a part. Whatever
at a
season
time.
it is caravan time. On the southern border in Tijuana, you have 4,000. Ultimately, we expect here in the next couple of days getting there. And what's really remarkable about this story is the mayor of Tijuana, Juan Manuel Gastelum, telling a radio group there that, quote, we don't have sufficient and necessary infrastructure to adequately attend to these people to give them a decent space. I saw that firsthand in scores of towns all the way from the Guatemala border through Chiapas State, through Oaxaca, all the way to Mexico City, and now it is on the border. The mayor also telling that radio station that, quote, I am not going to spend the money of Tijuana citizens for this group.
It's interesting because so many people in the media and on the left, the Democrats, have said that all this hoopla or concern about the caravan is just a political stunt. But here we have a mayor of Tijuana, a Mexican citizen, sort of echoing the concerns of his citizens of his town, saying, listen, this is a problem. We have increased crime. We have a strain on our resources. And that's kind of what a lot of mayors on our side of the border have been trying to tell Washington, D.C. for a while.
Great point. All the so-called media outlets in this town behind us in New York City, they can talk about it in a detached manner. But, Griff, you've been there. This mayor is there. He's seeing all these almost 5,000 folks coalescing at the border. We're not sure what they'll do as far as how they'll cross, when they'll cross, where they'll cross. But it highlights the fact that this remains a real problem for Mexico and for the United States of America. And that's why our president had a tweet yesterday talking about the need for an actual solution at the border. He tweeted this, if we can scroll the prompter up just a bit. Republicans and Democrats must come together finally with a major border security package, which will include funding for the wall. After 40 years of talk, it's finally time for action. Fix the border once and for all. Now, 40 years harkens back to Reagan, who had his own amnesty deal that did not include real border security. So here we are revisiting this problem. It's been heightened by the focus of attention on it. The laws still haven't solved it. So all of these migrants who are in a limbo status, can they enter? Will they enter? Will they be detained here or in Mexico? Will it be catch and hold or catch and release? What can the National Guard and the military actually do on the border? They've got more tools at their disposal now than they had before, but it's all still clouded in question marks until Congress says, no, we're going to fix this by building the wall and all the other side accoutrements that come with it to make
Right.
sure we have a solution.
The other thing to raise in that is, you bring such a good point that it's a political talking point. It's an abstract idea until the caravan actually shows up physically on your doorstep, and you
Yes.
have to deal with it. And this Tijuana mayor also is aware of, a few months ago when we had the first caravan, and that was only a few hundred people out of a little over 1,000 actually made it. It was an issue for them even in the hundreds because they had to set up a metering system to slowly let people come to claim asylum at the port of entry. Well, now you're talking about thousands, and you have the politics of it that is absolutely escalated. It is a much larger problem, and the president's trying to reach out in a bipartisan manner to say, let's find a solution, because if we don't, we're going to have a problem.
And we're going to have more caravans. I mean, because we already saw that.
Exactly.
And it just encourages
Or you
more
can do it in a
more.
partisan matter while you still control the House and the Senate and shut the government down and force a border wall showdown, which I think a lot of folks that think this is worth it would call for. But we'll see what happens.
Right.
In Washington.
The partial spending bill has to be voted on by December 7th.
Yeah.
And so if there's going to be funding for the wall, it's going to have to be at that point, and the president saying that's what he wants to
You can pass
happen.
that, and you don't even have to find out what's in it later, because you know what's in it. It's a wall.
And look, this is a complex problem. You've also got the president saying one of the solutions is obviously to rescind asylum claims for those that illegally cross on the rivers across the border, not coming to a port of entry, illegally crossing. The president wanting to say, look, we're not going to give you asylum. That's playing out in the courts. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer now weighing in on what was a row between Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts and President Trump.
That's right. So if you haven't been following on Twitter and through public statements, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court shot back at the President of the United States. Chief Justice saying there are no Obama judges or Trump justices. It's all blind. And Trump saying, no, they have different points of view. Well, saying there are Obama judges and Trump judges.
There are activist judges, and there are ones who follow the Constitution.
They all view the Constitution differently. Well, Chuck Schumer, of a Democrat from the U.S. Senate, tweeted this. He said, I don't agree very often with Chief Justice Roberts. Check this, especially his partisan decisions, which seem highly political on Citizens United, Janus, and Shelby. But I'm thankful today that he, almost alone among Republicans, stood up to President Trump for an independent judiciary. So on one level, he's standing up for an independent judiciary, which we all believe in and needs to be. He's also pointing out the fact that he believes that Chief Justice Roberts is partisan because he was appointed by Bush, and Chuck Schumer doesn't like that.
Well, by the way, wasn't it Chief Justice Roberts who upheld Obamacare? I mean, there's plenty for Schumer to love there.
Listen, at the end of the day, Chief Justice Roberts has weighed in, which is very unusual, but yet he may yet decide ultimately whether or not federal courts like this Ninth Circuit, which ruled out of its lane, didn't say just with the case that was put before me in the lower court with my district, but yet the Ninth Circuit judge there, Judge Tegar, ruled that the entire 2,000 border would be affected in this asylum thing. And that's really an issue that ultimately Roberts is going to have to deal with, and I think it's going to head to the Supreme Court. Justice Thomas cited in the first travel ban ruling that ultimately this is going to have to be decided on whether or not district federal judges can rule for a nationwide policy.
Yeah, President Trump pointing out that Ninth Circuit because it's been overturned so many times because it loves activist rulings. And listen, again, it goes down to people taking the president literally and figuratively. The reality is, of course, there are Obama justices and Trump justices and Bush justices and Clinton justices. They appoint the people that fit their worldview. And if you believe in the Constitution, you do one thing. If you see it as more activist and a living document, you do another. Again, I call this president the see something, say something president. It's obvious. Don't pretend like you live in a fairyland where everyone's just unbiased and everything's just, it's just not the way it works.
Yeah, great point. And by the way, the irony in Minority Leader Schumer's statement there, he applauds an independent judiciary, but yet just specifically with these one cases.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We could solve all of this if we just had people follow the Constitution instead of their ideology. But anyway, we'll discuss that a little bit later.
Yeah, we will.
We're going to get to some headlines first because they're in our ear. We got to do that. And this is a Fox News alert. An American hero is killed in action. The military confirming the death of a U.S. service member in Afghanistan overnight. Further details surrounding the incident are not yet available. This is the 9th American killed in action in Afghanistan this year. Earlier this month, Major Brent Taylor was killed in an insider attack in Kabul. That was so sad as well. Police are now revealing an officer shot and killed a man who may not have been the gunman inside an Alabama mall. The man was seen waving a gun while running away. He's believed to be involved, but new evidence show he may not have shot the 18-year-old man during a Black Friday fight. That teen was seriously injured. A 12-year-old girl was also hit by gunfire, and her condition is still unknown. A manhunt is underway for two men pulling off a dangerous prank. Take a look. A security camera catching the culprits on a porch, knocking on the door, then lighting the fireworks and taking off. It happened in a New Jersey neighborhood. No injuries have been reported.
And in a college football roundup, number 6 Oklahoma and number 13 West Virginia serve up a classic Big 12 shootout.
Different officiating crew here tonight, obviously, and what we saw in Stillwater. Greer, ball's up in the air, and now loose on the ground, and Oklahoma has it. Curtis Bolton taking off for the
That's not a high school basketball score. That is a college football score, 59-56. That last touchdown helped the Sooners outlast the Mountaineers, 59, as I said, to 56. Oklahoma plays number 14 Texas in the Big 12 title game after the Longhorns hold off Kansas 24-17. Iowa sneaks past Nebraska 31-28 with a field goal to end the game. And Washington State's band plays Washington's fight song. The band missed the game after getting into a bus crash. Washington won that game 28-15. A lot of sports. Like it goes with Thanksgiving.
It goes with Thanksgiving.
Right, it all goes in that big plate of leftovers that you throw together.
That you put all the gravy over and you spray butter on.
Spray butter, a little olive oil can help.
Football championships go with Christmas because that's where you get advancing. But more on that later.
You're actually right.
We've still got news. President Trump demanding Congress fund the border wall. So will it get done before the Democrats take control of the House? We'll ask Congressman Andy Biggs coming up next.
Plus, Dan Bongino fired up about Hillary Clinton's latest hypocrisy. He is live with us on this Saturday edition of Fox & Friends. Coming up.
Finally, with the major border security package, which will include funding for the wall. After 40 years of talk, it is finally time for action. Fix the border for once and for all now. Well, can a deal be reached before Democrats take control of the House in January? Joining me now, Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs. Congressman, good morning. Happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas to you. This issue is really pressing for you. You're on the border. What say you?
Well, I think that we have to do two things. We need to do them. We need to do them next week if we can. Number one, we need to pass the border wall. There's lots of bills out there. Mine's the cleanest. We need to do it. And then the second thing is we need to change the amnesty rules and put those and codify those where people have to apply in their own nation. And those two things will provide the disincentive for future caravans, because not this caravan's here. We're going to have to deal with this. But there are other caravans that will be forming and coming up based on how we deal with this caravan plus the wall.
Congressman, the president making it very clear he is not afraid to shut the government down as soon as the end of next week. What is the mood amongst your colleagues, Republican members that are so involved in this fight? Are they willing to go the distance with the president?
Well, I think there are a lot of us who are willing to go that distance and shut the government down, because this is a real national security issue right now. And there are others who aren't going to go there. So it's going to be a Donnybrook. But the reality is we need to do something immediately. We can't wait for a month. We can't wait for 2 more weeks. We need to do it next week. When
you say you've got to do it now, how concerned are you that when it looks like Speaker Nancy Pelosi, at least the Democrats, will take control, how concerned are you that that's really going to be a point of no return?
Once the Democrats get hold of it, we're not going to see policies that reform the amnesty law. We're not going to build a wall. We're not going to see. They're going to be focused on amnesty, which has been their focus for the last 8 years. So it's terrible.
Congressman, let me ask you to weigh in on, we're seeing this fight play between the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and the president, all about the possibility of taking away, rescinding asylum claims if you illegally come, not through port of entry, if you illegally come. What do you say? I mean, you've got Nogales, you've got Nuevo Laredo, you have so many ports of entry, but yet the idea of not allowing asylum if they come illegally, what do you say?
Well, you can't allow people who enter this country illegally to claim asylum. We're overwhelmed. And so that's a catch and release program that's there right now. And we know that 80% at least of the claims for asylum are bogus claims. And we're only getting 2% of people that come back. So we give them a piece of paper and say, okay, we're going to let you loose. Come back on this court date. They don't come back. And so they just come in, claim asylum, and they're in the country. So we have to change that law immediately. And this judge out of California who issued a nationwide injunction against changing and revising the asylum laws, that's a real problem. That judge has exceeded his judicial boundaries.
All right, Congressman Andy Biggs, thank you very much for joining us today. We shall see how this plays out. Obviously, the clock is ticking. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, a decorated Navy SEAL, with 19 years of service and 8 combat tours, is now behind bars accused of murdering an ISIS fighter. But there's new evidence casting doubt on the case against him. His brother will join us now. And the opposite Hillary Clinton. Now she's pushing for border security. But remember, she sent bridges for 12 infected patients at the Voorhees Pediatric Facility. None of the patients are critical at the facility. Additional cases of the respiratory virus are expected. And students fear that mold at the University of Maryland may have caused their classmate to die from adenovirus. Olivia Paragold's roommate says mold inside their freshman dorm room caused them to get sick. Paragold got pneumonia, which turned into adenovirus before she died at a hospital. The university says the mold outbreak is being investigated. Pete, down to you.
Griff, thank you. All right. Special Operations Chief Edward Gallagher has an extraordinary Navy SEAL resume, including 19 years of service, 8 combat tours, twice awarded the Bronze Star with V for valor. But now he's behind bars, facing multiple charges, including the murder of an ISIS dirtbag. Chief Gallagher denies all the charges, and now there's new evidence that could cast doubt on the prosecutor's case against him. His brother, Sean Gallagher, joins us now with more. Sean, thank you very much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Your brother, 8 tours, 19 years, Navy SEAL, engaged with the enemy. First of all, before we get into the case, talk to us about your brother.
My brother represents what is best about this country. He fulfilled a family tradition that we have of joining service, like his father and uncles and grandparents. Enlisted at a high school and became a medic, then a Marine Scout sniper, and then a Navy SEAL, which he's been for 14 years. He's been on 8 combat tours, like you mentioned, racking up accolade after accolade. I mean, if you were to literally create or imagine what a modern-day war hero would be, it'd be Eddie. Now, he's just like any other special operator. He's humble. He would say that I'm just like the rest of the guys, but even among his peers, he stands out.
Now, he's accused now, after all that service, Mosul, 2017, they're staring down ISIS. And there was an incident that occurred. There was a wounded ISIS fighter. He's already wounded and bleeding out. Talk to us a little bit about that incident briefly, what happened.
Sure. So my brother was in charge of his platoon. Trump and the president tasked him with almost the impossible, to clear out ISIS from Mosul. They're deeply embedded. There is intense weeks of heavy firefighting, of combat, of the gruelest caliber. You know, my brother's called me on every single one of his 8 combat deployments, every single one. And hardly has he described an enemy as cruel and as violent and as just disgusting as ISIS. And so in this incident in question, and I want to state from the beginning that everything that's been said is, and if I can use this phrase, it's fake news in a way. It's just complete fabrication. It's rumor. And what happened is that these rumors grew and then snowballed, where investigators took them and believed them at face value. And so for a year now, our family has finally been able to get the truth out. At this moment in time, we've been silent for a year, and so finally we're fighting back. So in this incident that you mentioned, quite literally the accusation is that a wounded ISIS fighter that he and his platoon were working on, that was already shot in the leg, a severed artery. They had been in a building that Iraqi special forces had shelled. They brought him into the SEAL compound. They're treating him, and then he expires. And the accusation against my brother is that this already dying fighter, my brother killed, which did not happen, but is insane just at the outset, right? That a U.S. Navy SEAL trained to fight the enemy brings in a wounded guy to save him so that they can interrogate him. And they say, oh, he killed him. And now my brother is facing, quite literally, life in prison without the possibility of parole.
So the NCIS and others are saying that he shot indiscriminately at civilians, that he killed this teenager, that he knifed him while he was on his deathbed, that he was reckless and bloodthirsty in some of his conduct. He reprimanded some fellow Navy SEALs who are now witnessing against him. There's also new evidence now, Iraqis coming out. We'll bring a quote out from the Navy Times in an NCIS interview with an Iraqi commander who was a part of these operations. He said, when asked directly by the NCIS interviewer if they had seen Gallagher kill the wounded prisoner, Al-Jabari said, no. Why would he do this? There is no need for this. So why all these allegations against your brother from other SEALs about him stabbing this wounded ISIS fighter? So
my brother was the leader of that platoon, and he pushed his men hard, as any chief would do. You know that being in combat. The leaders are what really dictate everything. There were a few malcontents, the guys that didn't like being reprimanded for not wanting to engage in combat. And you know as well.
He's a hard charger.
He's an extremely hard charger. My brother, as intense and as fierce an operator as you can get, which you should be if you're fighting an enemy like that. He's a Navy SEAL. He's a chief. It's what you're supposed to do.
He's the guy you want on the line.
He's the guy they tasked, trained, deployed time and again, and then rewarded for his leadership and his hard charging abilities. And so it was unfortunate that a few of the underlings, disgruntled because they were criticized for not being combat ready, fabricated stories. And that gets to the point of what you said. I mean, if you look at the allegations on their face, there's just an array of things that our family and him as well thought were laughable when we first heard them. There's no possible way. One, just due to the circumstances that he was in.
Yep.
There would have been, like the Iraqi general, by the way, it was a general who said this. He's like, there's 20 people around in this alleged incident. No one saw it. My brother will have multiple of his teammates, come forward to say that this never happened. We were there. We know why the guys are making these accusations, and it's false.
Yet he's in jail, and his trial will proceed. He had his Article 32 hearing. We reached out to NCIS Public Affairs, by the way, said they cannot comment because it's an ongoing investigation. Where does this go from here?
So eventually a trial date will be set, which we are eager to do. My brother has been eager for a long, long time now to clear his name and actually have witnesses come and testify on his behalf. But I just want to get to the point of the way that this military justice system, which is a misnomer in a way, is where you're almost guilty until proven innocent. My brother had these rumors alleged to him. He was told not to speak about him. And then they raid his house, and then they arrest him. And my brother has literally spent, and again, we're talking about a decorated warrior, has been in the brig for 2.5 months. His kids, my nephews and niece, had to visit him at Thanksgiving in jail 2 days ago. What kind of treatment is this?
Why would someone make this up?
That is a great question that we've been struggling with for quite a while. We think in some ways it's vindictiveness or just careerism, where folks are worried, as you well know, in combat and in something like the SEAL team's reputation is everything. And so if someone accuses you of not being strong enough, not willing to take the fight to the enemy, your career is over.
It's true. Where can folks learn more?
JusticeForEddie.com is a site that we have set up for my brother. You can donate. But the one thing that we're asking most folks to do is we're really thankful at this time in history that we have a president that we're hoping can come to our assistance, that would look at the grievous nature of his treatment, of the abuse of power by NCIS and prosecutors, and come to our aid.
JusticeForEddie.com. Sean, you've done your brother proud, for sure.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for his service. We will follow this case very closely.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right, well, Hollywood now tackling the border crisis as Murphy Brown, in an unfunny way, mocks ICE.
You guys cannot barge in here like this. If you don't, people who are scared and vulnerable, but if you don't get out of this truck, I will spatchcock you.
What did they do except give up everything so I could grow up in a country that we thought was the most compassionate place in the world?
Sorry, kid. We're just following government orders.
Spatchcock, I feel like she maybe used the wrong word there. I don't know. Why don't we ask Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, former NYPD officer, host of the Dan Bongino Show podcast, and author of Spygate, The Attempted Sabotage of Donald J. Trump. Good morning. What do you say, Dan, about all of this Murphy Brown stuff?
Well, let me say first, I had no idea at all what spatchcocking was, and thank God the producer, Stephanie, told me. I thought it was a mistake, too. I thought it had something to do with the spatula. But it's an allusion towards something you wouldn't want to have done with you if you were a human being. Listen, there's no issue out there that Hollywood and the intelligentsia and academia has misread America more on than immigration. And I can prove it to you guys. I mean, look at what happened in this election. The Democrats did well, right, in the midterms. They had a good day. It wasn't a great day historically, but it's a decent day. They win back the House, lost in the Senate, and did okay in the governorships. But look at what happened. The progressives out there who ran on open borders type platforms and this immigration policy, it's anti-Donald Trump, they lost. They got crushed badly. Matter of fact, the Republican in Florida, Ron DeSantis, who ran a commercial with his kid building the wall, literally, got 44% of the Hispanic vote. They are misreading America terribly on this issue because chaos is not a brand and chaos at the border does not sell.
And Dan, what are they missing about ICE? Because ICE does a lot of great work, but they do a lot of things like sex trafficking, drug trafficking, things that you want to abolish ICE and you want to call them, dehumanize them. You're dehumanizing the great work that they do as well.
Well, what's really grossly offensive about this is having been a former law enforcement officer at the city level with the NYPD and the federal level with the Secret Service. These are men and women who get up every morning. Pete, listen, you know, like you when you were on the military side, nobody's getting rich there, okay? Nobody does it for the money. They don't do it for the fame or the glory. They do it because of a commitment to service. These are very intelligent people who could go into the private sector and do quite well for themselves. And what do? They defend our borders. They defend our borders against child trafficking, drug trafficking, narco-terrorism, terrorism. And you have this Hollywood crowd who wants to use them as some kind of a foil for some sick political message. And you want to make it even worse? A lot of ICE agents out there, a large swath of them, are Hispanic men and women who want to defend this country as well.
Yeah,
it's really offensive.
It is very offensive, but you have to give the left credit for at least playing on the culture side. I mean, listen, conservatives spend a lot of money on think tanks, and the left actually does a good job of going into the culture. The sitcom's not very funny, but it will impact some people. But I think you're right, Dan. They're on the wrong side of the issue. The American people don't agree with a lot of it, but this is a good way to start to sway some minds. And conservatives are just not in that space at all.
You know, Dan, there is also someone on the left who has a bit of a nuanced problem, and that is Hillary Clinton. You may remember her on the immigration issue in Europe, right? So she tells The Guardian this. She says, I think Europe needs to get a handle on migration because that is what lit the flame. Well, she takes some heat for that. So then she has to tweet this. I have always been and remain a staunch advocate of comprehensive immigration reform that's true to our values and treats every person with dignity, provides a pathway to full and equal citizenship, and brings millions of hardworking people into the formal economy, fixes the family visa backlog, upholds the rule of law, and protects our borders and national security. And then we dug back into the treasure trove just to hit you one more time with her statements in 2015 and 2016. Here's where she was at that time. Listen.
I want to open up the opportunity for immigrants to be able to buy into the exchanges under the Affordable Care Act.
Of the people, the undocumented people living in our country, I do not want to see them deported. I want to see them on a path to citizenship.
We believe that cooperation is better than conflict. Unity is better than division. Bridges are better than walls.
So, Dan, can you translate? What is her position?
Yes, let me use the Hillary Clinton translator here because I worked with Hillary for a long time. Hillary's like, I was watching a show once and they have this new thing called Quick Change where people walk out with multiple outfits on. I don't know if you've ever seen this. And they change in a blink of an eye. They're called like Quick Change. This is Hillary. She's a political quick changer. Now, what she does is you have to understand about Hillary Clinton. She's running for president. So let's get that out of the way, okay? Let's stop pretending she's not. And what she's doing here is she's trying to triangulate. She thought, given the far left lean of the Democrat field in 2020, that she may be able to triangulate, kind of move down the middle a bit and take this centrist position talking about what happened with Europe and the massive wave of migrants and taking a middle position. She was rebuked immediately, probably by far left donors and activist groups, and she dials it right back. Hillary's principles are what she thinks she needs to get elected. which makes them non-principles. That's what Hillary does. She's changed and quick changed over and over and over and tried to reinvent herself. And I think she's trying to find a pathway to 2020. Guys, it's crystal clear right now. She's at least very seriously considering another run for the presidency. I personally, knowing her and her people, I have absolutely no doubt. Why would she change so quickly on Twitter? She didn't say anything that controversial. Europe has unquestionably had problems with massive waves of migration and the inability to absorb people into the population. There was nothing controversial about that, yet immediately
she's pointing
dialed
out
it back.
like a state of fact and then has to retreat from that, which does get your
we learn from
political
Dan.
spidey sense going.
Every time Dan comes on, we learn something. Hillary's running in 2020.
I know.
How about
I
that?
appreciate
Definitely is
it. I
believing
learned
that.
what spatchcocking was, so I learned something new today, too.
All right,
you,
Dan.
Happy
Have a good
Thanksgiving,
one.
Dan. Appreciate it.
Take care.
You too, guys. See you later.
All right,
Take
and
care.
we have to turn to some headlines now. And we begin with a Fox News alert. Violent protests are breaking out in Paris over rising fuel prices. Police are using tear gas and water cannons to disperse the thousands of angry mobs. Some even throwing firecrackers at officers as they call for President Emmanuel Macron to resign. The price of diesel, most commonly used in France, has gone up about 23% since last year. Students could soon skip school to protest. A Maryland school district is reportedly considering a proposal that would allow high school students to use 3 excused absences per year to demonstrate. A school board member says the policy would help prepare students to become leaders of the next generation. The proposal is expected to be approved next year. And some people breaking Christmas tradition by ditching their green trees for colorful ones like this. You can expect a growing trend of these bright and colorful trees this holiday season. We want to know if you are a fan of this. Do you think this should be a new trend? Email us your thoughts at friends@foxnews.com. What do you guys think?
You said you had a flock tree when you were growing up, right?
I did like my
With the-
silver tree growing up. I mean, I didn't know much different because we never had a real tree when I was growing up.
How about the